So we've got another example of shareholders getting antsy over chief executive pay. This time it's not in the banking sector, it's oil company Exxon, which yesterday hosted a webcast for investors to try and explain why it thinks paying its CEO $35 million last year makes a lot of sense. Chris, why on earth are they holding this this webcast?
Well, they've had a bit of rebellion last year, so about a third of their shareholders objected to this, and the proxy advisory firms are again making very, very sceptical noises. The main reason, of course, is that about half of Rex Tillerson's pay seems to bear no relationship whatsoever to any kind of performance metrics.
So it's not a matter of how much he's paid necessarily, because look at some other examples in the industry. Guys over in Europe get paid less than the Americans, right? But in America,
there are some worse offenders. There's Ray Irani, who's always one of my favourite oil executives, and he was paid 40. He's at Occidental Petroleum, which admittedly has done rather well, but he's paid about $41 million last year, and Occidental is about a quarter the size of Exxon.
So on a size basis, one could argue he's not the worst offender.
He's not the worst
It's not
offender.
size, it's the lack of performance.
It's the lack of connection to any kind of performance measures. And their claim is the following. Well, the oil business has incredibly long lead times. You can make a decision and 10 years later you figure out whether it works. My suggestion is, well, have a 10-year performance metric then. Don't let him get his hands on all of this compensation until 10 years later.
When you've hit
certain performance
because they do have some relatively good features in there for protecting shareholders from just handing over lots of payment. What are those?
They have a very, very long vesting period, which is you get for the restricted stock, which was in Rex Tillerson's case was $18 million.
So about half his pay.
Yeah, he only gets his hands on half of it within 5 years, and then the remainder he has to wait for about 10 years or until retirement, whichever is longer.
Which actually, that in itself isn't bad. But again, we go back to the same thing. You don't know how they come up with the 18 million last year, and what about a performance to make sure you get it? Because you could, aside from, I suppose, aside from a position where he puts the firm in such danger that they can actually claw back his pay, which is difficult to do.
He's going to get all of it. He would need to do something monstrously awful in order for them to be able to claw it back. And my suggestion is there are plenty of... you can actually reconcile shareholders and management on this, because they don't want to be confined by a 1-year or a 3-year performance target, and that's actually quite understandable. But shareholders don't want to give them such unfettered freedom that they can simply pull these figures out of thin air, which seems to be what they're doing at the moment.
So what was the mood on the call yesterday? And you listened in. Did shareholders seem to be agreed?
In sceptical mood.
Skeptical. Excellent. Well, that sounds pretty good fun. And the AGM is end of this month.
It's on the 30th.
Well, thanks, Chris. We'll keep an eye on that and for the AGM at the end of the month, and we'll be back tomorrow with more breaking views.